Hello and welcome to yet another episode of our summer school. I hope you will enjoy this summer school. And I'm just looking at one thing, and maybe I'm not live. It seems I am live. Can you please someone tell me? Oh yeah, I am live. Yeah, I just saw the zero number, so I was quite afraid that nobody's watching. So sorry for that. But now I see there is over 170 people, 60 people watching. So sorry for that. Let me start all over again. Welcome yet another episode of this summer school. This time it's going to be dedicated to all of you who are somehow involved in macro photography or who would like to learn something about macro photography. And as you probably know, we do have two amazing features in our cameras, or actually in your cameras, which you have at home. And that is focus stacking and it's focus bracketing. So today I'll try to shortly explain you what does it actually mean, the focus stacking, focus bracketing, how does it work. I'll also show you some examples of images. I will later on switch to the menu of the camera so that you know where exactly you'll find and how to set it up. And obviously, I will also show you a couple of nice images from our ambassadors who are obviously more, let's say, experienced in macro photography than I am. I'm not a pro macro photographer. I try my best and do my best in macro photography, which I love as well. But obviously, there are people who are much better in this. Okay, so let's jump directly into what I want to show you today. And let me just very quickly show, all the greetings. Thank you so much from, I see Colorado, Sweden, Netherlands, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Nova Scotia. From all around the world, from Madrid. So, hola in Madrid también, porque un poquito hablo español. But now let's switch back to English because my Spanish is very bad. Okay, so the first image actually I want to talk about is from my local great macro ambassador. And that is an image, or basically a portrait of a regular fly. Why am I talking about regular fly at the very beginning? Because of one simple reason. If I show you the very detail of this kind of image, you can very clearly see that you are able to detect like every single tiniest detail basically on the fly, which on one hand seems a little bit creepy to me. On the other hand, it's like an alien picture. On the other hand, this is something that lives around us, flies around us all the time. But obviously, if you are trying, or if you would be trying to take such an image, such a portrait of a fly by one single shot, you would never be able to achieve it. Why is it? Because this is actually 4 times magnification. This has been shot with 90mm macro lens, as you know, probably, I assume you do, but we do have like 3 lenses in our portfolio. That is 30mm macro, 60mm macro, and the latest one is the 90mm macro lens, which is even with the built-in stabilization that, as you probably know, cooperates with the stabilization in the body. So the power of the 90mm macro lens, as for the stabilization goes, is very, very, very big. And it helps you to actually take images of either stacking or bracketing handheld. So not only from the tripod, which is great for some type of photography, but also you can, if you are shooting some field macro, like flowers or insects out in the field, it is possible to do it handheld as well. But again, as for this image goes, you would never be able to do this one handheld because this is a stack of more than 200 images. And as you can see, I'm once again showing you the detail of it. It's like something that's totally amazing. So it's 90mm macro lens together with MC20, so 4 times magnification, which is equivalent to 8 times magnification on full frame. And basically it's a stack of more than 200 images. That is why it is so sharp from the very front to the very end of the image. Obviously, you would never be able to take such a shot if the fly was alive, because it would be moving. So flies are around us. You can find many flies which are even dead already. I don't want you to kill any insect or any animals, but if you find a dead fly, just pick it up, put it on a needle or somewhere, and you can try something similar if you have 90mm macro lens, or you can try, let's say, not such a big close-up. You can still do one-to-one close-up with 60mm macro lens, or similar one with 30mm. But let me just go to a couple of other slides just to show you what I still consider as macro. This is still from Nikita Shchasna, our ambassador. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put her name into the banner down here. So that's her Instagram. She's more active on Facebook, but she's speaking only Czech, so it's probably not good for you. But the images obviously will find not only on Instagram but also Facebook. So this is her. This is our local ambassador. But switching back to the other slides, there are a couple of other images which I still consider as great macro from Nikita. But what I want to talk about is this part, this particular part. What is this famous stacking or bracketing? What is it? How does it work? Why do we even use it? If you want to achieve an image of something that's very tiny, for example, the fly or a bee or something, some very small insect, for example, it may be flower or other things, but let's talk about insect today. If you are achieving to do a picture of a small fly, and you obviously want to take the tiniest detail possible, then what do? You take your macro lens, which obviously allows you to go very close to the subject. The longer the length, the focal length of the lens, the farther the distance you can be from the subject, which is very good for insect, because you don't need to go like 1 or 2 centimeters to the insect, because obviously as soon as you go too close, then the insect will get scared and fly away. So basically for this type of purposes, the 90mm macro lens out of the 3 is the best for shooting insect. But what you want to achieve is slightly bigger depth of field compared to the one which you would achieve with a single shot. Because one single shot means that you have a certain specific distance where you focus at. Most of the time it would be eyes, obviously, because not only with people, with animals, mammals, birds, and others, you want to have eyes perfectly sharp. Pinpoint sharp needs to be the eye. And the same goes as a very easy rule for insect. So you are focusing at the eye. With one single shot, it would probably be only the eye which will be in focus, not something that's closer to the camera, not anything that's more farther away. So from the eye, let's say towards the back part of the fly or of the insect. And therefore, you need to, let's say, move the focal plane or focal distance little by little and take more shots, which is something that you see on this slide. So basically, this is like 3 shots, shot one after another, where you will change the distance where you focus. And then you have like 3 different images where it's focused at different distances, and you stack them together. Obviously, you don't hit like yourself with your mind. You do it either in the camera directly. That's what we call focus stacking, because the camera can do it for you. You don't have to do it in the computer. Or if you use bracketing, focus bracketing, then you can also do it in the computer. Obviously, you can do it also in the computer once you use focus stacking as well. I will explain a little later. But let's see what happens if you shoot only 3 images with a macro lens. If you shoot only 3, then still your depth of field is still going to be very, very shallow, which means that you will not get the whole insect from the very, very front to the very end in focus. Basically, because of one simple reason. You need to, let me just go with my mouse to the picture, because you need to cover this distance between first and second, and between the second and the third image. You need to cover it with a depth of field, which will be in focus. So what you can do, okay, you will start thinking, okay, let me close down the aperture. So I will go to f16 or f22 so that the depth of field gets bigger. Obviously, yeah, that's might be your first idea. Why not to do it? Well, the explanation why not to do it is very simple. Please never use the biggest, the closest apertures like 16 or 22 when you are shooting macro photography. Obviously, what you get is what's called optical diffraction, which actually means that you are losing detail all over the image. You are not getting the pin sharp details, which is something that you want in macro photography. So never use such closed apertures with macro photography. Always go from something like 5.6 to maybe 8. You could go to 11, maybe even 13, but never use these closest apertures, because it will simply destroy your image. So what you need to do, you simply need to take more shots with the same aperture, meaning not only more shots, but meaning bringing the images, which go one after another, closer together. So basically, what you are doing, you are changing the focus differential from the wider one, which this would be, let's say, the sample of the widest one when the images are farther away from each other, to something in between. Or you can even go to very narrow focus differential, which would be bringing the images even closer together. And in that case, it's very easy, even with aperture like 5.6 or 7.1 or something like that, to actually bridge the distance between one and the second image, and then with another 50, 100, 200 images, basically stacking them together with getting everything pinpoint sharp, meaning that you get in every single place of the insect, you get a proper place which was focused at. Because the worst thing is, let me just return to the first slide, and that's this one. The worst thing is that you, let's say, take 3 shots, but the aperture, which might be, for example, f8, would only cover the half of the distance, or even 1/3 or 1/4 of the distance, which means that you would have one part, let's say one slide in focus, then you will have another part which will be out of focus, another part which will be the second image will be again in focus, again another part out of focus, and so on and so on. So you'll have like 3 different images, but basically they will not be stuck together properly, because there will be places which will be in focus, out of focus, in focus, out of focus, and so on. And that's something that you totally don't want to have once you are shooting macro photography or any kind of photography, basically, because you can use focus stacking or bracketing even in landscape, as you probably know. So let me just bring this what I just mentioned to yet another type of picture. This image is, as far as I know from the English wording, this should be the hoverfly, as far as I know. If not, please correct me, but I think this is the hoverfly. And imagine that you want to take a picture of the hoverfly from the front. You can see how long it is. It's pretty long. It's like 1.5 centimeter. And if you are taking the picture from the front, then you need to, let's say, use many images to actually get bigger depth of field. In this case, I think it was 37 images. If I make you the enlargement, you can see the detail, how perfectly the whole head is in focus. But if you look at the back part, it's already totally blurred, which means it's out of focus. Imagine that you would want to have this hoverfly in focus from the very beginning, from the very front, from the very head to the very end. That would mean not 37 images stacked together, but maybe 300, 400, 500 of images stacked together. Which again brings me to something that obviously I need to say, and that is the insect must not move, ideally at all. So I'm not talking about a dead fly now. Obviously, this is a live animal, but you need to choose the proper timing. And for the insect, the best timing is very, very early in the morning, which is maybe the reason why I'm not a specialized macro photographer, because I hate waking up very early in the morning. And in this case, it actually means going out into the fields, maybe at 4:30 in the morning, being there on the spot already at 5 at sunrise, and starting to take pictures. Because once the insect is still cold from the night, they don't basically move almost at all. But as soon as the sun starts shining, they warm up and they start flying, and they are very active. So it's much more difficult. So basically, again, what I have told you at the very beginning, if you split, imagine that I'm shooting this hoverfly from the front, so I'm in front of its head. Imagine that I would just split into 1, 2, 3, 6 images like this, 6 lines basically. What would it mean? I would have to bridge the part from one and the second image, from second to the third, and so on, by aperture. But definitely even f22, which I told you never use, would not help it. It would only cover maybe 1/10 of the distance, but definitely not the whole part. So what you need to do, simply take more images. Please don't count the lines. This is just a demonstration, but you would need a couple of hundreds of images to actually take perfect shot of this hoverfly from the very front to the very end to be perfectly sharp. Let me just switch to yet another very simple focus stacking. This was an image which was taken with only 8 stacks together, so 8 images stacked together. So this is the first one. I'll just go through it very quickly. As you can see, the fly slightly moves. It's not the movement of the fly, or not even of the leaf, because there was like no wind at the moment, but it was the movement of my own hand. So this was a handheld stack, which actually proves that you can shoot very easily stacking from handheld. Obviously, you need quite enough light. But what you can see also at the very end, and this is something that I want to point out, is if you look at the images, the last one is bigger. It's actually bigger because of one simple reason, and that is a crop. What happens is I have this let's say screen or shot of my screen of monitor. It's a different shooting of a spider, tiny little spider, but you can see on the monitor that there is this black tiny little line. Let me just make it slightly bigger so that you see it. As you can see, this tiny black line, this is what shows up when you are shooting focus stacking, because the camera can stack up to 15 images, which I will show you how to set it up a little bit later. It stacks 15 images, but as you could have seen at the previous series of the fly, it actually moves from one side to another because of the shake of my hand. First reason. Second reason might be that actually the fly itself is slightly moving, or there is a little breeze which can actually move the whole leaf with the fly. So it's slightly moving from one side to another, up and down and so on. Therefore, the final stack needs to have, let's say, some extra space for final cropping. So basically, if you are shooting focus stacking, please bear in mind that every single time you are doing it, there is this black line, and this will be your final composed image. Also, one simple information, which you also probably know, but let me just repeat it, and that is, if you are shooting raw, then the stacked image, the final stacked image, will always be JPEG in focus stacking. If you are shooting raw plus JPEG, again, the final stacked image, the one which composes maximum 15 images together, will always be in JPEG. Which does not mean that the 15 images, or less than that, whatever you set up, will not be stored in the card. They will. So if you set up the 15 images stack, it means that you will have actually 16 images in the card. 15 will be those with the focal differential, the focus differential, and the 16th one will be stacked one, but always in JPEG. Yeah. But if you want to develop the raw data in some kind of software like Helicon Focus, Photoshop, or other software which is dedicated to focus bracketing or focus stacking, please, you are very, very welcome to use even the raw data which are stored in the card. Another set of 2 images which I wanted to show you is basically displaying the difference between the daylight and between flashlight. This is basically the same spot, same spider out in the field. The first one, obviously, you have probably noticed, is daylight, so with no flash. It is a stack of 15 images. It seems okay, quite sharp, obviously. From the, let's say, composition, or maybe not composition, but from the light point of view, I even like this one better than the second one. On the other hand, the flash gives you, let's say, more sharpness. The image is more crispy, it has more contrast. So it very much depends on your style of shooting. Maybe sometimes you will only use daylight, sometimes you will use flash, but definitely you are very much welcome to use flash for macro photography. And later on, I will show you a couple of images from a very new ambassador from Slovakia, who is a macro ambassador, Richard Kubica. Let me show some of his images later on. And most of them are actually using flash. You will see them later. So basically, the difference between daylight and flashlight is quite big. But again, it's up to you what type of photography you prefer, but you may obviously choose different ones. Okay, one more shot before I get to the menu, before I get to the setup, or a few more shots. This was a shot of a bee which I shot actually something like 2 weeks ago. And basically what I wanted to show you is this is not a stack. This is a single shot. So it's not only about stacking or bracketing, where we can still talk about macro photography. Macro photography is basically an extreme close-up photography, right? So details which we can bring up into the photography and show them in bigger detail than we see them in reality, then it's the time when we can start talking about macro photography. And something that I was telling you at the very beginning, always focus on the eyes. So if the eye is in focus, then it's perfect. Obviously, also the leg is in focus, but as you can see, the back part of the bee is already out of depth of field. So basically, it's not perfectly sharp, but it does not matter. In this type of image, it's still okay. What I want to show you also is a let's say bad example, because in this case, obviously, it was in motion, in movement, because it started to fly. The back part is in focus, so quite okay, but the eye is blurred. So basically, this is the type of image which you should not be displaying. Keep it for yourself, it's okay. But if you are like attending some photo competitions and stuff like that, this will definitely not be the one which would be the winner, because of a simple reason. The eye is simply not perfectly focused. Yeah, that's yet another picture which is not really important. Now, I want to get to two types of images where I want to show you something that's very often happening when you are shooting either focus bracketing or stacking, doesn't really matter because it's a series of images. And that is motion during the shooting. As you can see, I've taken the picture of this fly, and the fly was somehow shaking or moving its front legs. And as you can see, normally, normal fly has two front legs, right? This one has maybe like 6 or 8 of them, which is not properly, let's say, it's not a proper fly. So basically, what you can do, obviously, erase the image because it's no use. So take another shot. Or sometimes when it's only tentacles, you know, many beetles have these kind of these long tentacles, or not tentacles. I think it's antenna. Antenna, I think, is the English proper wording, I guess. So these antennas are moving slightly. So what you can do in those kind of focus stacking or focus bracketing softwares which you are using, as I mentioned, Helicon, Photoshop, and others, you can try to mask the areas which are wrong and keep the areas which are okay. It's very time-consuming work in the computer, obviously. So it's much better to take picture of an animal when it's either sleeping or very cold, when it's really not moving. But once it happens, and you really want to make sure that you want to keep that shot, you need to spend some time in the software to actually get rid of these moving parts. And yet another, even though I'm describing the similar thing, yet another example, and that is the motion during the shooting, during the stacking, which I was actually quite surprised that the camera even stacked this image together, because normally when you take a picture during the stacking of something that's moving so much as this fly, because it has moved like 2 centimeters, normally you get this kind of warning: focus stacking error, image composite failed. Because it did, it's very simple, the reason why it actually failed, because the motion was too big, you know, so it cannot actually stack the same spots, I mean the same shapes, one over another, or yeah, the shape of the fly in this case, one over another. And in this case, it still stacked the image. Obviously, it's an image which you would erase immediately. I kept it because of this reason, just to show you that this may happen during the stacking or during the bracketing, and if the motion is too big, simply erase the image and start the stacking all over again. So basically, this is my first part of how the stacking and bracketing works. And now let me show you directly in the video. Well, I'm saying video because of one simpler reason. As you know, some of the features of the camera menu are not active or are not accessible when you are using HDMI cable. So normally what I would do now is I would just take my camera, connect it via HDMI cable to your screen so that you can see it properly, and I would show you. But focus stacking and focus bracketing are one of the features which are actually not compatible with HDMI connection, meaning that HDMI signal is getting out. So you cannot use these two features in the same time when you are using HDMI cable. In that case, what I did is I simply made a video of the screen of my monitor. So excuse the quality of the menu, but I think it's still quite visible so that you would be able to see it properly. So basically what you, oh, sorry, I still need to switch this. So what you need to do is you go to menu 2, which is this violet symbol of camera with number 2, and you go to focus stacking. In the focus stacking part, you obviously have the option to switch it on or switch it off. If you are not using it, keep it off. If you want to use it, just turn it on. And once basically the focus stacking is turned on, you have several options to set up. First of all, and that's the one I talked about already, you need to set up the number of images that you want the camera to stack together. The least number, the smallest number of images that need to be stacked is 3. You cannot go to 2. You have 3 images which needs to be stacked. And the maximum number, obviously, is 15, which I talked about already. So you can choose anything in between. You can go to 10 images, stack them together. You can go to 5 images, stack them together. And it very much depends on what you are shooting. Set focus differential. This is one of the most important part. And this is something that I was talking about at the very beginning when I showed you the slides of 3 images, then like 10 images, and then like 50 images together. Because there is the setup of wide or narrow focus differential. What does it mean, or how would I explain it so that it's easy to understand? Basically, I would say that the smaller the subject which you are shooting, or we may also say the bigger the magnification you are getting, so like 2:1 or 4:1 and so on. The smaller the subject or bigger the magnification, the more images you need to stack together, and in the same time, the narrower focus differential you need to set up. So in the case of the head of the fly, for example, you would need to go to number 1 here, so that the differential between the images is very, very tiny. And in the same time, you need to set up a huge number of images which will be stacked together, which obviously in focus stacking you cannot, because focus stacking is limited by 15. And that is when focus bracketing, which I will talk about a little bit later, comes into place, because there's lots more images which you can put together, obviously in the computer, but you can still do it. Okay, so first of all, you set the number of shots. Secondly, you set the focus differential. And third part, if you are using flash, and if you are using flash which is not compatible with your Olympus or OM system camera, which means it doesn't communicate with the camera body, then you need to set up what we call charge time. Because if you, for example, set up what we can see on the screen now, 10 images, then it means that it needs to take 10 images, but every single one of them needs to be shot with the same amount of flash. It cannot happen, or it should not happen, that one image is with, let's say, a full flash power which you set up. The second one is more darker because the flash wasn't properly charged yet, and so on and so on. So all the images need to be shot at the same, let's say, at the same amount of light which goes out from the flash, which is no problem if you are using like the FL700 or FL900 flashes from OM System. Also, if you are using some external flashes which are dedicated for Olympus and OM System cameras, which do communicate with our cameras, so it's still okay. But you may also use some other flashes which don't communicate, but then you need to tell basically the flash or the camera to wait for a certain time before the flash is fully charged so that all the images are the same. Okay, let me continue with the video so that you see all that you can set up. One more thing with the focus stacking and focus bracketing, or for all of you who are interested in macro photography, I strongly recommend that you set up some of the function buttons as a shortcut. Because if you are in the menu, obviously you can go into the menu as we did just right now, but it's much more easier and especially much more faster if you just jump into the menu, into the specific place of the menu by pressing one button. And this is the place in Super Control Panel where you do it. So you go into this wheel, and you enter this button function place. So basically, if I, for example, the exposure compensation button don't really use. I can switch it to focus stacking. As I say, you can use any kind of button, right? I'm just showing for demonstration this kind of exposure compensation button. So I switched it to focus stacking. Then the second button, for example, which would be the red video button, I switched to focus bracketing. So I already have two buttons, one for focus stacking, one for focus bracketing. And there's one more thing which I strongly recommend to all of you who are interested in macro photography, and that is one more feature, which is the magnification, because the magnification really helps you to pinpoint perfectly, focus the tiny details. So this kind of setup, basically focus stacking, focus bracketing, and magnification, I would definitely use when I would be shooting macro. Obviously, as I say, the buttons which you choose for these three features varies up to you. It's up to you, but it's very strongly recommended that you have them somewhere. Okay, now if you want to shoot focus bracketing, then you go into the same menu, but you go to the third page, which is dedicated to bracketing. And as you know, there is exposure bracketing, white balance, flash bracketing, ISO bracketing, art filter bracketing. And the very last one on the button is what we are interested in today, and that is focus bracketing. Basically, as you can see, the setup is just about the same. You need to turn it on first. Secondly, you choose the number of shots that you want to stack together. Basically, you are not limited by 15 anymore. You can go up to 999, so almost 1,000 images, which you can stack together. But normally, obviously, you would use something like maybe 200, 350 images and so on. But definitely more than 15 if you really want to get bigger depth of field in these tiny little details, or we may say in these big magnifications. And again, here you set up the same thing, which is the focus differential, as I showed you at the focus stacking, and the same thing for charge time. So basically, this is the whole setup. This is the setup of focus stacking and focus bracketing, how you would do it in the camera. Again, I remind and strongly recommend to set it up on specific buttons, as I just showed you a few seconds ago. And let me just switch now to some other examples. And this would be an example from Nikita, the first ambassador I showed you today, where we would be able to see a couple of images. Let me just point or let me just make some slight enlargements for you. This first image is 15 images stacked together. If I go to the next one, this will be 30 images, not a big difference, but some visible. The next one will be 60 images, and this one is 90 images altogether. If I just scroll through it very quickly, so it's 90, 60, 30, and 15. You can see how the depth of field actually changes from the 15 to 90, and this is how the difference would be if you put the images next to each other. So basically, with this very simple stacking of more and more images with exactly the same setting, you get bigger depth of field. Very simple. As I said, smaller the subject, the bigger the magnification, the narrower focus differential you need, and more images needed. And in contrary, basically the other way around, if we take it, if you have bigger subjects, if you're obviously shooting from farther away, from farther distances, which means you are getting smaller magnification, then you need less images, and you can choose the wider focus differential. And let's go to another example, and that is this should be, I think, green fly is the English wording. This is a single shot. This is just a single shot with no stacking, no bracketing. But then let me show you 15 images stacked together. As you can see, there is some small difference. And the next one, I'm sorry, my colleague is calling me. I need to switch it off. And the next one is actually 60 images stacked together. And if I show the difference between one image, 15 images stacked, and 60 images stacked together, I think it's quite clear what you need to set up on your camera if you want to take images of very tiny subjects, but you want to get them perfectly sharp from the very front to the very end, or from the, let's say, upper part, in this case, to the very bottom part. So these are the samples. These are the samples I wanted to share with you. Okay, now let me quickly switch to the brand new ambassador I just told you about, and let me show you a couple of images. Actually, his name is Richard Kubica. You can see his Instagram down here. It's Richard Kubica Macro, and this guy, I'm pretty much sure he would very much enjoy if you either follow him or look at his images, because he has recently switched from a DSLR camera of other brand to OMSYSTEM, to OM1 with 90mm. Also, he bought the MC20, so he's using the 2x teleconverter for macro photography. As you know, again, this is one of the advantages of 90mm macro lens, that you can combine it together with the MC20, meaning that you are not getting 2x magnification, but you can actually achieve 4x magnification, which is like extreme magnification. And if I show you this image in, let's say, bigger magnification, you can see how detailed and how sharp this ladybug is, not only at the very beginning, at the very front, at the eyes, but also you see the tiny droplets on the side here. They are still perfectly in focus, perfectly sharp. And this image is a stack of 79 images together. So obviously focus stacking was not involved because it's limited by 15, by number of 15 images. Obviously this was used by, or shot by, focus bracketing. The step was very low, as you can see, step 2, and aperture f8, 1/80 of a second. And obviously you can see it from the image, flash has been used. So this is a series of 79 images where the flash was used, stacked together. In contrary, this image is still a stack, but it's a stack of only 3 images. If I show you the detail, you will clearly see how the 3 images stack it together. The eye, again, is the place where you want to be in focus. But if you look at the back part of the fly here, not even speaking about the back or the rear wing over here, which is totally out of focus, but it's okay. To me, it's absolutely okay, because I am not achieving, or Richard was not achieving technical kind of photography or a specialized entomology type of photography for a professional entomologist. He just wanted to take this nice, amazing, let's say, artistic looking shot, because to me it's very minimalistic and I love it personally. So he only used three shots with the step number 2, obviously focusing at the eye. Yeah, some other images. Again, this is a stack of 37. If I give you some slight enlargement, you can see that it's perfectly focused. And again, if it was only one shot, definitely only tiny little part, probably the eye would be in focus. A regular wasp, nothing else, just a wasp. But as you can see, again, composition of quite a few images, 27 in this case. What I like, okay, I'm talking about macro photography and how to achieve macro today. But also what I like about this picture from Richard is the type of composition, because he has been using this kind of front alignment because he's shooting through some green grass, and it actually gives you this kind of special impression, which normally you are trying to achieve when you are shooting portraits of people, maybe animals, but in the case of insect, it works just about the same. So I really love this photography. Yeah, some other ones. This is actually the image you have seen at the beginning. Again, a composition of 36 shots, and this is the front image, 37 shots stacked together. Again, I noticed that Richard is mostly using the focus differential number 2, because he's really taking very detailed images, very tiny details. If you would be shooting, let's say, not macro photography, but close-up photography, which means that the subjects are shot from farther away and are, let's say, not covering such a big part of the image. In that case, I think you could very easily use the single shot photography with slightly bigger aperture. I will actually show you another ambassador later on who is shooting single shots, and I still consider his images as great, kind of not macro maybe, but close-up images. But let's see them a little bit later. This is not a dragonfly. This is I think it's called damselfly, as far as I remember the English wording. I hope I'm right. Again, stack of 22 images, step 2. The same one from the side, 38 images in this case. And let me just bring some detail for you so that you see how the droplets are perfectly visible. The eye is nicely in focus. So this type of detail you can achieve once you start using focus stacking, focus bracketing. Obviously, all of these images we have seen so far from Richard are using flash. So the flash definitely is something that I would recommend to all of you who are really in macro photography. Obviously, you would need to have some, let's say, special setup. Let me just briefly switch to yet another video where I have very short. It's not this part, but it will slowly switch to. Let me skip some parts. Yeah, this is it basically. So this is the setup where you want to shoot more than 15 images, basically where you are not using focus stacking, but you are using focus bracketing with a lot more images than just 15. So maybe you are shooting 50 images, 100 images, and so on. So lots of images that you want to stack together later on in the computer. So you will be using focus bracketing. In this case, handheld shooting is basically impossible. So you need to have something that's really stable. In this case, you can see that it's sitting on the tripod. You have this front and back motion. This is the blue part down here. I don't know how we call it in English. But also what's really important is that you can micro adjust the movements of the camera. As you can see, you can, with this tiny little thing in front and then on the side, you can make all sorts of motions of the camera in microscopic adjustments. So it's very detailed, because then if you are in big magnification, then every single, let me just stop the video here. Then every single motion or movement of the camera actually means that you are getting very big shakes at the end. Okay, let me switch to Richard Kubica again and his images. So I'm getting back. So these are the images which have been shot with flash and with focus bracketing. And one of the few images which I received from Richard is this one. This one is a single shot. As you can see, you don't see the detail as you could have seen, obviously, in this image, in the previous one, which was with 90mm macro lens, very close up, with bracketing, 38 images stacked together. And this one is still with 90mm macro lens, but with farther shot from farther distance, obviously. It is not what we would normally call macro photography, but it's a very nice close-up photography of basically very similar type of insect. And to me, I very much love it, especially because of the background of the blurred circus back there. So the bokeh is very nice. So it's one shot, 3.5, 125 of a second, and this is no flash used. The same with this bee. Again, one shot. This time it's 90mm together with MC20. So those of you who are using 90mm macro lens already, and you want to achieve bigger magnification, or you want to shoot, let's say, maybe even sometimes from farther distance, or get bigger close-up photography, please go and try the MC20 in your local photo store, or maybe at some of your workshops. And if you like it, obviously you can buy it either at a B2C or at your photo dealer, wherever you want to. So this is a very nice shot. And last but not least, one last image from Richard, which I received. I hope it's not coming soon. I mean, the winter is not coming soon because I'm still enjoying summer. I hope all of you are too. But again, even these tiny little flakes, snowflakes, which are ahead of us, still a couple of months, but let's wait for them. Once they are there, we can shoot nice images like this one. Again, stacked 17 images together with step 2. with the focus differential step 2. So let me briefly, before I go ahead, let me briefly go to some of your questions. Okay. There's lots of comments. Okie dokie. Let's start from the beginning. Can you tell me the relevant situations for different settings of focus differential? I think I have covered this. So this should have been explained already. I hope it was. If not, please give me another comment. So basically, as I said, let me repeat again. The bigger the subject, which means the smaller magnification you are achieving, the less images you need, and the wider focus differential you set up. And the other way around, smaller the subject, the bigger the magnification, more images, and narrower focus differential you would be using. Another question from Craig. When focus stacking, is there a way to turn off saving the intermediate raw images if the stack succeeds? If I understand it well, Craig, what you mean is that once the final image is stacked and saved on the card, you want to either erase or stop camera saving the previous images. Basically, the images, the first, let's say, 15 images, are saved on the card, first of all. And secondly, these 15 images are stacked together, and which means that the 16th stacked image is saved on the card. So it's actually not possible to have only the final image, the stacked image, saved on the card, and have all the rest of the images, the previous images, being erased. Unfortunately, but it actually brings me to an idea. It's a nice point maybe for our R&D, that it would be nice to have this option, or at least to have an option to quickly erase one setup of either stacking or bracketing. That's a nice idea. Thanks, Craig. Okay, greetings. Okay, so let me just switch to questions. I need to find some. So I need to go quickly through it. I'm alone here today, so I'm sorry. Terry, what's Terry saying? I'm with Craig. Can one add a feature to delete images used to make stack? Yeah, well, that's basically what I just answered. So yes, it would be nice. It would be nice. So thanks for your ideas. I tried focus stacking many times, but I'm never happy with the results, as there is always some hellos ghosting. Any tips to get rid of this, or is this normal? Yes, as for the hellos and ghosting, Susie, you are absolutely right that on the verge of contrasty areas, so something that's dark, something that's light, that on the verge of this contrasty area, it may happen that if the contrast is really big, there appears this type of tiny halo. There is one solution, one easy solution to it. Unfortunately, not in the camera. The camera uses this type of algorithm, which causes this halo effect from time to time. It's not always visible, but sometimes it happens, as I described. But what you can do is you can take these images, which are not stacked together, put them in the computer, and use different type of algorithm. For example, the Helicon Focus software, which is dedicated to focus stacking or focus bracketing, it actually uses 3 types of algorithms, which I tried. One of them does even exactly the same thing as we do in the camera. So the halo effect sometimes appears, but the other 2 don't. So there are advantages and cons and pros to all types of methods, how the images are stacked together. So basically, or if you put it into Photoshop, Photoshop doesn't do it at all. So there's like no halo effect. If you have Photoshop, you are very much welcome to put it in there and stack the images in it. Okay, so let's see another questions. I don't have a macro lens. Can I still experiment with focus stacking for 45mm or something? Probably not the 45mm macro lens. I will show you one slide very shortly, and it's this one. These are the lenses. These are the lenses which are compatible with focus stacking or focus bracketing. So basically, obviously, it covers all 3 macro lenses. Then most of the pro lenses, but not the 1.2 lenses. So if you are talking about 45mm, then it's not compatible with focus stacking, neither 1.2 version nor 1.8 version. So basically, these are dedicated more for, let's say, portrait photography. But you can still, if you not only have 45mm lens, if you have any other out of these, which you can see here, then you can still definitely use it for stacking, for bracketing. Okay, let me switch this back again. I'll just put this one on the back, and let's see some of the questions if there are some. Good afternoon. How many images? Let's see. How many images can you shoot handheld with 90mm? Huh. George, easy question, but not as easy as it may seem, because it very much depends on how steady your hands are. I mean, I can easily shoot those 15, sometimes 20 images handheld if the subject is not moving. So if it's something still, or if it's even insect, but it's really not moving, then it's easy for me to stack those, let's say, 15 to 20, maybe 25. I haven't tried. I have tried maximum 20. And this will be perfectly stacked, either if it's 15, either in the camera, or if it's more in the computer later on. Obviously, there are people who are, let's say, more steady and who will be able to hold more in their hands. It's the same thing with the image stabilization. We say, or I have tried holding just a regular shot. I'm not talking about macro photography now, but a regular shot of a landscape or some cityscapes. I'm able to hold 5 to 6 seconds handheld with, for example, 12 to 100mm lens. I know a guy who is actually a local ambassador who is holding 30 seconds handheld, and his images are perfectly sharp. But he's like a totally different builder, body build than I am. He's the kind of, let's say, wushu guy, who trains this kind of oriental things. So he is really, really experienced in holding his breath, not moving at all. And that's something that I cannot achieve. So it's very, very individual. Okay, what's this question? Can you discuss how you determine depth of field and how many cuts to make over what distance? Oh, this is, I mean, we are getting these questions like all the time. And it's not one of the most difficult. It's not difficult, but the reality is, let me just go back to this slide again. Or maybe this one, the other one will be better. This one and this one. The reality is that the depth of field differs not only on the focus differential. It differs on the focal length of the lens, if you are using 30, 60, or 90mm, or even other ones if you are using tele lenses. So it depends on the focal length. It depends on the distance from which you are shooting. So basically from the plane of the sensor towards the focusing point. So that's a second point. And obviously third point, and that is aperture. And the fourth point then would be the differential itself, the focus differential, which you set up in the camera, as I just showed you a few minutes ago. So there are like 4 points together, which can be mixed in enormous number of ways. So basically, yes, it could be measured. It would be like a table which would contain maybe thousands of different variations. But basically, even though we offered you this kind of table, you would never probably be using it out in the field, because out in the field, what you need is to know, am I getting big magnification, something like 1:1 or 2:1? Already, if I know that I'm getting big magnification, I'm starting thinking, okay, then making just slightly bigger depth of field means that I need to take a lot more shots, and I need to set the differential as small as possible. So from maybe number 1 or number 2, the focus differential. And number of shots would not be 10, 15, but would be maybe 50, 100, and so on. On the other hand, if you are shooting from farther distance, if you are shooting, let's say, bigger subjects, or they appear bigger on the screen in your viewfinder, and so on, from farther away, then you would think the other way around. You would start thinking, okay, then in that case, I need maybe, like you see on the screen right right now I need maybe only 6 shots because I'm shooting from very far away, you know. So, and I need aperture maybe f8, and that will be it. And the f8 would actually cover me the distance between one and the second shot, and between the second and third, and so on and so on. So there is like no math behind, even though it could be calculated, but we don't have such table existing. So best thing is like really experience. Please try it on yourself. Try different types of shots from different distances, and you will learn by practice, I would say. Okay, I think I've answered this question. If you could handheld a focus stack of 15 images, I think so. Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. Lisa is actually replying to George. Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much. And let's see, there are some more questions. Is this bracketing on OM5? Yes. OM5 also has bracketing and stacking. There is the difference in the stacking that you cannot stack 15 images, but you can stack 8 images together. So the limitation is slightly lower. Okay, let's see some other questions. Focus differential, something that needs more elaboration. You cannot set subject size in camera. Yeah, basically, exactly. So basically, exactly as you say, AJ, the focus differentiation in the camera, which I showed you, is from 1 to number 10. Does not mean that from 1 to 2 it's like 1 millimeter or 1/100th of a millimeter and so on, because it varies on all the things which I just mentioned a few minutes ago. The distance you are shooting from, the focal length, the aperture, and so on. So many other things are involved. Okay, how do I get rid of the soft area around the subject? Yeah, that we have already talked about. That is the halo effect, which we discussed. So not in the camera, but you can do it in focus stacking software, like, as I mentioned, Photoshop, Helicon Focus, Zeren Stacker, and many others. Okay, guys, I think I'll just, because we are getting to 1 hour, and also it should be like 1 hour. So if I don't answer some questions right now, or there is one very interesting one, which I need to reply, where do you put first focus point? Yes, that's yet another difference, actually, between focus stacking and focus bracketing. Because if you are doing focus bracketing, then the point where the focus point where you point at is the starting point. And from there, it starts and goes towards infinity. While if you are shooting focus stacking, then from the point where you focus at, it jumps towards the camera slightly, takes, I think, 2 or 3 shots, and then continues towards the infinity. So in focus stacking, the camera simply wants to make sure that the point you are focusing is perfectly in focus, but also some, let's say, other areas which are in front, so which are in between the focus point and the camera, are also slightly in focus. So basically, in the focus stacking, you can be 100% sure that the area which you are focusing at will be in focus, but also some parts in front of this area will be in focus. So that's the difference between focus stacking and focus bracketing. So with focus bracketing, yes, you point at a certain point, and from there towards infinity, it goes on, like 100 images, 200 images, whatever number of images you set up in the camera. Okay, let me just show you a couple of last images, and these are the images from our yet another ambassador. You could have seen some of them. You could have seen some of them already in one of our AMA sessions. Sorry, I'll just turn this one on, and here are the images. None of these images have been shot with a macro lens. These are all what we call telemacro lenses, or telemacro shots, or we could also say that these are close-up shots. On the other hand, these are shots of tiny subjects, which we have just seen in those very detailed, perfect images, which have been shot as macro photography. This time we can talk about close-up photography, but to me, this is what, like, majority of us, like myself, I consider myself rather this type of a photographer who is shooting, let's say, from farther distance with telelens or even with macro lens, like the 90mm macro lens, which I love a lot, but I'm shooting, let's say, the smaller magnifications. So this type of images. Yeah, this kind of shots. I mean, this is amazing. This is like a real helicopter, but obviously it's a dragonfly flying. But it has been shot with 40 to 150 2.8 millimeter lens. Amazing one. Again, dragonfly. This time still photography. Flying bee approaching the flower. And again, even with this one, as you can see, the important part is that the face or the head and the eye is in focus, while the back part can perfectly be out of focus, out of depth of field, and it does not really matter, because what's important is that the front eye is, or the eye facing the camera is in focus, like I said at the very beginning, with the eyes of animals, birds, and people. So a couple of shots for the very ending of this summer school. And one more point, which I want to stress out with this kind of photography, because we have seen many, many images of insect today, and maybe we have not noticed one thing, and that is that the best images, or at least to me, the best images of whatever type of animal, if it's insect, if it's a fly, if it's a frog, if it's a big deer or bear, whatever, if it's even a human being, then the best portrait images of this type of animals is from the eye level. So basically, even this frog, if you shoot it with 45-degree angle, then you would not get such a beautiful shallow depth of field behind the frog, first of all. Secondly, you would not get this nice reflection. So if you are shooting even insect, and even in macro photography, or even this type of photography of frogs or other lizards and so on, please always try to get your camera on the level of the eye of the animal, and you will see how much your overall photography will improve. And in contrast to what I've just said, this is totally different approach. Obviously, there are colors playing. This is one of the images from Radim Hlavac, photographer, ambassador. And this image actually won the Czech Nature Photo competition. So it was very nice shot within the competition. And last but not least, let me end with this type of it's not a regular, I think it's a grass snake, you call it in English, as far as I know. So this type of grass snake, again, it won a couple of competitions, and it has very nice detail. So again, we should not talk about macro photography with this one. Obviously, no focus stacking, no focus bracketing involved, just a single shot with 2.8 aperture with 41-50mm lens, but an amazing shot, which I would personally consider definitely close up, if not macro, but definitely nice close up shot. Okay, let me just switch quickly to some of your more questions. Last but not least, let's see 3 more questions. And okay, what type of flash is recommended for an EM10, specifically for macro photography? Basically, it does not only cover EM10, Diane. I would also say that for any type of Olympus or OM camera, if you want to shoot macro, I would strongly recommend the FL700 WR flash, because obviously it has 100% communication with the camera. So even during the focus stacking or focus bracketing, the flash goes just very quickly, almost as fast as the speed of the single shots goes one after another. Only sometimes, if the flash is not recharging as fast as the images go, then the whole system basically freezes for a while. It waits for the flash to recharge, and then it goes again. But basically, it is very fast for the recharging. Also, FL700 is the only flash which can also be triggered remotely, I mean via radio control. So basically it has built-in radio receiver, also radio transmitter. So if you only put the radio transmitter on the camera into the flash, hot shoe, then you can put the flash anywhere around the subject. It might be even like 20, 25, 30 meters away from you, and you can take the images. So not only for macro photography, which is great for, but also for a regular type of photography, whatever it is that you are shooting. Okay, let's see another question. With stacking, you focus on the eye. With bracketing, how far forward do you start since it goes from front to back? Yeah, this is basically something that I've already answered, that with stacking, you can focus on the eye, which is okay, and it goes slightly towards the camera, and then goes back towards infinity, as I mentioned. With bracketing, you should basically start slightly in front of the eye, if obviously it is some kind of insect which has some other parts of the face in front of the eye. Okay. One last question. Let's see, David. Will Olympus produce a final raw image instead of JPEG for focus stacking? Isn't JPEG a bit limitation? Well, there are two ways to see it, David. I mean, one way, at least, as I said, I'm not a professional macro photographer, but from what I hear from those who are really dedicated to macro photography, they say that they, most of the time, use focus bracketing, not only because many times they need more than 15 images, but even though sometimes they need 15 or less, they say they still want to stack the image together in the computer. But before they do the shot, they still use the focus stacking to actually see what will be the focus differential and how they should set up the aperture on the camera, so that there are like no blind points. As I said, you don't want to have a series of images where one is sharp, another unsharp, another sharp, and so on and so on. So basically, to use the focus stacking to actually preview what the result will be with the focus differential of, for example, 2, or with the focus differential of number 8, and so on and so on. So you see the difference on the screen, and then you know how to set up your focus bracketing. Obviously, for myself, for example, the focus stacking directly in the camera is absolutely okay. You are absolutely right. I would also welcome to have the final stacked image in RAW, but as I assume, there are some limitations to it. So as far as I know, R&D probably cannot do it, because if it was possible or easy to do, it would already be in the camera, I guess. Okay, last but not least, let's see some last questions. It is amazing, guys, because, I mean, you are amazing, because I see that you are replying to yourself or one to another. Okay, where is the best place to start a focus bracketing? This is something we have answered. How do I choose between stacking and bracketing? This is something I think I've just explained. So stacking is for us non-professional macro photographers. I mean, really, if I'm happy with the final JPEG output and I don't need the raw data, also, I don't want to, let's say, spend time in the computer stacking the images together or putting them together. I am very happy with what the camera does for me, because the 15 images, which is the number I use most in my macro photography, is absolutely enough to actually get slightly bigger depth of field, which is enough for me in my insect photography. While obviously, if you are professional photography, you would be using the bracketing, because you need more images. You are shooting much bigger magnifications than I am. I usually tend to end up at 1:1, 2:1, which means 2 times magnification. I use very rarely, which would be really details of a face of the fly, for example, which we have seen at the very beginning. This was even 4:1 magnification, even bigger one. So basically, John, this would be like my advice. It depends what type of photography you are shooting. If you are shooting big magnifications, you need to go to focus bracketing, because you would definitely need more images than 15. Or if you are happy with just regular shots, slightly, let's say, bigger ones or from bigger distances of the insects, and you are happy with that, and you are happy with the final output, which means that, for example, the half of the bee from the head towards the middle of the wings will be in focus, and then the rest will be slightly out of focus. If you are happy with that, still okay. I mean, let me end this up with one simple image, and that's the one I have already shown you, and that was the one I did right here. Let me show you the image. Okay. And that this little bee, this is a shot which I did, as I said a few days ago. And basically, I'm very happy with it. And this one even is a single shot. Obviously, if the fly was, I used single shot because it was moving so fast. If I was shooting something similar, which would not be moving, like for example, a beetle or something that's more steady, I could use probably a stack of maybe 5 or 10 images. But even this one as a single shot, where the head and the eye is in focus, while the back part is out of focus because it's out of depth of field, but I'm still happy. I'm still happy because to me it's a nice image, which just shows you how the bees are actually eating the nectar from some flowers. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry it took 1 hour 10 minutes, so I have like well, again, I'm sorry. Next week you will be meeting Claire, and Claire will be explaining you everything about starry sky autofocusing system, which we have in some of our cameras. And obviously she'll be also talking about our, let's say, long exposure modes, which is called live composite, specifically live composite modes, which you can use for star trails, for fireworks, for light painting, and all kinds of photography similar to that one. So please don't forget to tune again on YouTube next week, and Claire Harvey May will explain just about everything. Thank you so much. I haven't answered all the questions, I know, but we'll be here for another half an hour at least. But let me try and come back to them in the chat under this YouTube video. Thanks again. Enjoy the summer and have a nice day. Bye-bye.